Hello everyone, and welcome back to another cold winter video here in the mountains. So this week I'm sharing everything that I've been baking during this darker, quieter time of year, and I hope that it inspires you to make something cozy for yourself. I invite you to take a deep breath and make a cup of tea and enjoy this calm, quiet winter baking video. So the first thing I'm showing you is mixing dough for sourdough bread. I'm making two different loaves. One is chocolate sour cherry walnut sourdough, and the other is cranberry walnut loaf. The secret to making the best sourdough bread that you will ever eat is doing a very long Autolyse in the beginning. So basically what that means is you mix the flour and the water together with no starter or salt, and you let that sit and rest for around 2 to 4 hours. And doing this allows the flour to fully hydrate, and it also naturally begins the gluten development and, in my opinion, makes the bread taste way better overall. After a couple of hours is when I will then add my starter, and it can be a little challenging to mix it in at this point, but you just got to squeeze the dough and combine everything. And I'll let that sit for 30 minutes to an hour while I soak my dried fruit. And then now on the first fold of the dough, I will add the dried fruit and the nuts and the salt and mix that together super well. Over the course of the day, I did multiple rounds of stretch and folds, and then I'll let that sit in bulk ferment for around 6 to 8 hours. It's a little longer now that it's winter. My sourdough has been taking, a lot longer to double in size, but then once it's done, you just place it on the counter and shape it. Shaping your sourdough correctly can really impact the rise of your dough. Shaping properly is more important than people realize, in my opinion. Now I'm just gonna let it sit in the fridge to proof in my bannetons all night. My fridge is set to 38 degrees, which allows for a small amount of fermentation and rise to occur, but it will not overly ferment your bread. The cranberry walnut one is so perfect for winter. You could eat this bread with sweet or savory things. I love putting jam and butter on top or frying an egg and eating the bread with that. It's just like the perfect seasonal bread, in my opinion. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to show you is cardamom buns, which, oh my gosh, you guys, I love these buns so much. I make these every winter. They are a family recipe, and I like these a lot because they're not too sweet, and the cardamom is my absolute favorite spice. So today I am using yeast to rise the dough, but you can definitely use sourdough instead. Just mix it exactly the same and add 100 grams of sourdough starter instead of yeast. Also, it's very important, in my opinion, to grind your cardamom from fresh, whole cardamom pods. I think it really makes the flavor a lot better to use freshly ground spices. So first I mix the dough ingredients, except the butter. Then I place the dough on the counter and knead the butter into the bread. Once the butter is completely mixed in, I'll let it rest for around 10 to 20 minutes and then knead it again for quite a long time. You can put it in your KitchenAid mixer with the dough hook attachment and knead it on there for like 5 to 10 minutes. You want it to be very soft and no longer sticky at all. The dough should be able to pass the window test, which basically means when you pull it, it stretches so far you can almost see through the dough. If the dough tears or rips when you do this, that means that it's not done kneading. You need to let it rest for like 10 minutes and then knead it for a longer amount of time. And now I'm just making the filling by mixing together some softened butter, brown sugar, cinnamon, and some more cardamom. And once the dough doubles in size, I cut it exactly in half and roll out each half into a rectangle. And then I'll just spread the filling all over one of the rectangles and then place the other dough rectangle on top and press it down. You can use your rolling pin to kind of roll the two pieces of dough together, and then you want to just cut them into long strips. It doesn't have to be exact. Also, you can shape this however you want, really. Personally, I like to take one of the strips and twist it a couple of times, and then I just wrap it around my fingers twice and then tuck the tail into the center of the roll. And I'll let this sit on the pan for a couple of hours to get nice and puffy, and then you want to wash the top of them with a little bit of egg mixed with a splash of milk or cream. I also sprinkled some pearl sugar on top. This is optional, but it makes them really pretty. You can freeze these and then take out one at a time and have it in the morning or the afternoon with coffee. It's very important to have these with coffee though, because I think the flavors complement each other really nicely. Okay, so this next recipe is the one I am most excited to share with you all, and that is my secret pie crust recipe. This is the best pie crust you will ever eat, and I actually promise you that. So the most important thing is you want a high butterfat content butter. This is called European style butter. American butter has 80% butterfat. We want something that's more like 85% butterfat. This is the secret to a very flaky crust. So we are going to start with mixing flour, sugar, and salt together. Then cut your butter up into big chunks and just lightly mix that together, coating all of the chunks of butter in flour. Then dump this out onto your work surface, and then you're gonna roll it out. You're looking to roll it so thin that the pieces of butter become these like very thin strips of butter. And then just scrape everything up and place it back into your bowl. Now we're going to add the ice water, a tablespoon at a time, mixing between tablespoons. Your goal here is to add the absolute least amount of water as possible. And now just dump your dough onto the counter. And again, we're going to roll it out. The dough might stick to your rolling pin, and that is okay. Just scrape it off. And now take the bottom third of your dough and fold it over. Then take the top third and fold it over both those layers. So you'll have 3 layers of dough, turn that 90 degrees, and then roll it out again. Do the same process 3 different times, rolling it out and then folding the bottom and then the top onto itself. After the third round, gently shape it into a ball and place it in the fridge for about an hour. Once it's cold, we're going to roll it out. For this pie, it is a custard pie, so I will need to blind bake the crust. That is not a problem. Blind baking can be intimidating, but I promise you guys, it's really easy. You just want to place your dough into your pie pan, crimp the edges of your pie crust, and then also poke the bottom with a fork so steam can escape. And then crumble a piece of parchment paper and place that into the pie along with some beans. I reuse the same beans every time I make a pie. I bake that for 15 minutes at 375 degrees and then remove the beans and continue baking for another 5 to 10 minutes until it's golden brown. So now I'm making the cranberry filling for the top. I'm just boiling cranberries with some fresh orange juice and sugar for around 20 minutes. Then I take it off the heat and stir in a little cornstarch to help thicken it and let that cool in the fridge. The filling for this is super easy. You just beat cream cheese, a little honey, and whipped cream together into a light and fluffy cream. And since you already pre-baked the crust, you don't have to cook this pie. You just put it straight into the fridge and let it set for a couple of hours. And oh my gosh, you guys, this pie is so good. The tart cranberries taste so nice with the sweetness of the cream. Okay, so the next thing I'm making is orange bread, which is actually a recipe from my great-grandmother who passed it down from her mother, so my great-great-grandmother. I make this every winter since oranges are in season right now. The cool thing about this recipe is you use an entire orange. You'll start by grating all of the zest and then placing the whole orange in a bowl with the zest, and you mash it up until it's completely smashed. And then to that, add a couple of eggs, some milk, and slowly stir in melted butter. This is a very simple recipe. There is honestly not much to it. My mom told me that growing up, when her grandmother made this bread, they would slice it really thin and then toast it in the oven and then put butter on top. And that's how she recommends you to eat it. I agree with my mom because honestly, butter makes everything taste better in my opinion. Okay, so this next recipe is revel bars, which is something my grandma used to make all the time in the winter. Basically, you melt dark chocolate chips with homemade sweetened and boiled milk, and then you turn that into fudge. And then the dough is just a simple cookie dough, but made with a ton of oatmeal and nuts. And basically, you just press half of the dough into the baking dish, and then you pour the hot fudge on top, and then sprinkle the rest of the dough onto the fudge, and you bake that for around 30 to 40 minutes. And I'm not kidding you guys, this is my favorite thing that I've ever had in my entire life. I'm not joking. Okay, I know I say that a lot, but it truly is like the best tasting thing. It's everything I love. Chocolate and then this like thick, chewy cookie bar. Oh, so good. You guys have to make this. Winter has some of the most underrated ingredients in season, in my opinion. And yeah, I just hope this video inspired you to bake something sweet this winter, whether for yourself or the people you love. Thank you guys so much for watching this video, and I will see you all next week. Okay, bye-bye.